Hello and welcome back to another video. This week I want to discuss the Pentax 17, which is a newly released film camera that hit the shelves a couple weeks ago. This camera has become quite popular and it's gotten quite a bit of praise, and I'm not really sure why. I can't give my own personal input or own personal experience with the camera, as I don't own one and I don't intend to own one anytime soon. But I would just like to make a short video talking about why I think this camera is weird and why I think it's weird that Pentax chose to produce this camera over a different one. This video is going to be very controversial, as a lot of people love this camera and a lot of people hate it. So if you're wanting to leave a lengthy comment about how much you hate me and how much you love this camera and all of that, then please do so, as all it does is boost my video up into the algorithm. Anyway, let's just get into the video. So the first thing that I want to talk about is the film format for this camera. Yes, it uses 35mm film, but it shoots it in the half frame format. So this means that a normal 35mm frame will be split in half, and it has some benefits, but it also has some negatives. The benefits of this are that you get twice as many shots per roll, so instead of getting 36 exposures per roll, you now get 72. This can be really beneficial, especially today with the current prices of film, as you essentially get double your photos. Like, instead of getting 36, you now get 72, and that's actually a really good idea. But the negative of shooting a half-frame camera is your image quality is essentially sliced in half. I know that's not exactly how it works, but it's really not far off. I don't think it's really worth getting more photos for less image quality. I've shot a few different half-frame cameras before, and each one of them have produced images that are nowhere near as crisp or as detailed as 35mm images. And this wouldn't exactly be an issue if the camera was cheaper, like the Kodak Ektar, but it's 10 times the price of the Kodak Ektar. And that leads me on to my next point, which is the price. At the time of recording this video, the Pentax 17 is around £500, which is absolutely ridiculous for a half-frame camera. For that price, you could buy an older Pentax SLR in mint condition that's been refurbished with lenses. But instead you're buying a half-frame glorified point and shoot with a lens that is almost a carbon copy of an older Pentax half-frame camera. I think the price is the thing that makes it so weird. If the camera was £150 or £250, then I would see it as a lot more reasonable. But instead you're paying £500 for a half-frame point and shoot camera. Like, why is that even an option on the market? I'm sure people in the comments are going to say film cameras were the same price in the 80s and 90s when adjusted for inflation. But that shouldn't be the case for a film camera today, as there are film cameras out there that are just so much better and they are half the price. And I think the only argument for buying the camera at this high of a price point is that it will be reliable since it's new. But there are cameras out there that are constantly being refurbished and repaired that are so much better than this camera, and they are nowhere near as much money. It really makes no sense to me as to why anyone would buy the Pentax 17 over the Olympus Pen F in near mint or even mint condition for around half the price. The third thing that I want to quickly talk about is the focusing system. This isn't really a problem, as zone focusing isn't exactly new on cameras. But I find it weird that zone focusing was the focusing system of choice on what is essentially a point and shoot. It's not like they couldn't fit an autofocusing system into this camera, as there are cameras out there that are so much smaller that have autofocus. I guess that Pentax have done it purely from like a cost standpoint, as putting autofocus in this camera would make it so much more expensive, which is just not needed since it's already a ridiculous amount of money. But as the title of the video says, I just find it quite weird. The final thing that I want to talk about is why Pentax have made this camera. It's pretty obvious that Pentax has made this camera now, as film photography is once again gaining popularity. But I think they chose the wrong demographic to make this camera for. Instead of making a film camera that's for film photographers, they have purely made this film camera for social media. And I guess on paper, that is a smart choice, as everything revolves around social media. But in reality, that's a weird choice, since I think most film photographers that shoot film on the regular would much more prefer a normal full-frame 35mm camera. One of the few major problems of film photography nowadays is the reliability of cameras. The cameras that people are using are 30, 40, 50 or even 60 years old or more. And when they haven't been serviced regularly or looked after properly, then things do go wrong. So the smart choice that Pentax could have made would be to create a full frame 35mm camera that uses the Pentax K mount. This would have been a really good idea, as there would be a more reliable way to shoot film, and Pentax would be increasingly more popular as K-mount lenses would be more in demand. They could have also just recycled old lenses and basically used the same optical formula, but instead of having metal construction, it's changed to plastic, so it's a lot cheaper to produce, and they could have sold them with the camera and made so much more money than they would do by selling this camera. But instead, they decided to make a £500 half-frame point and shoot because they wanted to appeal more to social media than to film photographers. And I think in the long run, it would have been so much better to create a full-frame 35mm camera, as that is something that people would probably use quite a bit on the regular, where this camera, I'm guessing, will probably fade out in a month or two. And don't get me wrong, I do think this camera is the step in the right direction for camera companies, as film photography is luring more and more people into the format. So I'm hoping that Pentax and other camera companies realise how much more beneficial it would be for them to tailor products toward the film photography community rather than clicks on Instagram and TikTok. I truly believe in a month or two, or even 3 at a push, that the Pentax 17 will just completely fade out and be nothing but a back thought in people's minds. However, I do think that when big photography YouTubers such as Carl McDougall or Willem Verbeek release their videos about this camera, that there will be spikes in its popularity, but it will then eventually just fizzle out into nothingness and just sit on people's shelves collecting dust, which is actually quite a sad thought. It's quite a sad thought because it is a really cool idea for a product, releasing a new film camera, but I think Pentax just took it in the completely wrong direction, and I hope they learn from it and actually create a product that is tailored towards the film photography community rather than social media. Anyway, that's the end of this video. Be sure to let me know what you think about this camera and what you think about, what I've spoken about and all that in the comments down below. I hope you've enjoyed. I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.